Okay, so good afternoon. I'm here with my friend and author, Eric Cedeno. So Eric and I met at camp a year and a half ago. And a little over a year ago, I suggested that he write a book. And he actually took me up on it. And I just edited his first draft. We're in the process of those edits, which is what I want to talk to Eric about. But the exciting news is we just ordered his book cover. So we're really starting to get momentum toward publishing. And when I talked to Eric earlier this week, he was telling me how he felt about the edits. And having been through this myself personally, I could really relate. But I wanted him to share his view with you guys so that you could see what it's like to get an edit from someone like me. So Eric, I'm going to give you the stage. Tell
Thank you.
everyone what it's like to get an edit.
Well, for me and my writing style, I really write the same way that I talk, pretty casual. I honestly don't think out of the 300 or 400 pages that were out there that there was one paragraph that did not have some fine tuning involved, whether it was like, typo, spelling error, or, grammatical something, or a different way of phrasing that just made it easier and easier to read. Every once in a while I come across something that's like, no, come on, that's not what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say da 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 da. And I'm like, well, let me just write da 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 da. I should have just done that in the first place. So sometimes it sparks creativity, but every time I go back, it's just the flow is just so much easier to say and to talk to and to read that it just I'm impressed that I put words on the page that ended up moving in that direction where it's just so seamless and it has a flow to it. It's just polished. I mean, it's just super exciting, really exciting to get it to that level so quickly.
Yeah, and I want to go back to what you said about I'm excited that I put those words on the page, because even though I've helped you edit and it may sound smoother or different now, it's still your words and it's still your story. Did you encounter things where maybe I made a suggestion or a comment that you didn't agree with?
Yeah, every once in a while you'll throw something out there where it's like, oh, you should, consider tying this into, in this direction. And I'll put a hard stop like, no, I really don't want to go down that rabbit hole with these people. I'm not ready for that, but maybe for the next book, and when that happens, what I do is I'll open up a separate Word document and I will transfer those long-term ideas into that other bucket so that I don't lose track of them because
Excellent.
they are good.
Yeah.
But they're not essential for the direction that I'm trying to head in at this point. So
Excellent.
still good ideas, but for the direction where I'm like, there's a crossroads. I don't want to go that way. I want to go that way.
Yeah. And that's important. Like, I really want to reinforce that no matter what kind of edits you get from your editor, you're still in charge. So if that's not the direction you want to go, then you make that ultimate decision of thanks, but no thanks. But tell me about the ones where you got and you were like, thanks. Like, how did it feel to you to open up that document and see red line in every paragraph?
Well, for me, I was excited about it because I know that grammar and punctuation and spelling are not my areas of greatness and expertise. I know I need help in those areas. So I was incredibly grateful to see, how quickly things could improve, in just one revision, full revision of like, hey, somebody dove in and really spent the time to analyze and say, all right, does this make sense? Is this the right where, is it WHERE or WERE or
Yes.
through? I use the word throughout the book in the wrong
You
way.
did. That's right. You did.
And that's part of my own, way of like, oh man, so it's a learning curve for me on a lot of the fundamentals of how things should be presented, like numbers, like writing out 1 ONE versus just the number 1.
Yes.
1 through 10.
I'm glad you mentioned that. So one of the things that I do when I edit for someone is I also include a list of like, these are some common grammar things that you consistently didn't follow and you might want to follow in the future. Do you think that that set of guidance will help you be a better writer?
Oh, totally. Not only just trying to write as being a published author, but also if I'm giving a presentation at work or something, it's the same guidelines where it just makes me look better and more prepared and,
Yes.
a little classier, like, oh man, that Eric guy, he's really got his act together.
Yes. And that's exactly what a good editor does, is really helps you have that credibility and that authority and just makes you look good in every way possible. Like you're good to begin with because you wrote the story.
But now I'm great because it's like polished.
Yes.
It's like I'm ready to go on tour and start talking and I can just read from it and it's just easy to, the information just flows with such an easy pace. That you're not getting caught up in the grammatical stuff that makes people's ears hurt because like the nails on the chalkboard, like you're doing it wrong, you're doing it wrong, and people get caught up on that. So if you remove those speed bumps along the way, which is what you're doing for me, it just makes it smooth sailing.
And ultimately, we're doing it for the reader so that they want to keep reading, because like you said, if they see those continual mistakes, I don't care how good a book is, but those continual mistakes it leaves a bad taste in my mouth.
Yes.
It's challenging.
And I'm fortunate, lucky, grateful that your area of expertise when it comes to editing is one portion, but the subject matter, you're not an area of expertise of what I'm writing about. Right. So it's wonderful to get feedback of, well, what do you mean by this? This is that surf jargon stuff again, isn't it? Can you tie that in sooner so that it's easier to flow at, later on in the book? Yeah, okay. And then I'll go back and I'll tie some stuff in earlier in the book and I'll be like, damn, that really does sound right there. All right. This really does, yeah, and then I'll just get off on another tangent of inspiration that just fits.
Yes.
So that keeps tying back. And as I read things and they're like, well, can you just sort of hint at that in this other portion right around this spot?
Right.
Like, perfect. Yes. All right, so I got this. And matter of fact, and then there's other instances where and you've done great at this, is you'll pick up and say, is there really value added in what you put in this paragraph? Does it really enhance what you're trying to share with the reader? And sometimes it's either I need to expand on it so that it does,
right,
or I need to remove it. And there were things that I started writing and I'm like, you know what? I don't need that. And I'm okay with removing that portion. Or I take it, I put it in my other Word document and I save it for something else in the future.
Yes.
If I thought like, hey, you know what, this is a great story, but it doesn't fit for what I'm trying to share in this portion of the book.
Right. So going through an editing process like this obviously adds more work to your plate as an author, because you've had to go back and revisit and revise and remove. What do you think the value of that is versus publishing your draft?
Oh man. So the difference, is enormous. If I want to be taken seriously, I need to do the legwork. And that means reaching out to somebody that's smarter than me in the areas where I need help, which is why I have an editor. If I did it on my own and somebody took the Pepsi challenge of where I started with versus where I am today, and they wanted to invest in one of them, chances are, and it's not really a contest, it's the one that had, the extra eyes on it, the one that had, the questions answered before the reader had the chance to ask those questions. It's already been embedded in there so that, you could tell that the reader was thinking this, and that didn't become an issue or roadblock or speed bump.
Right.
All those things were removed ahead of time. So yeah, having an editor, you're going to get what you pay for. And the more you invest in that, just the huger return you're going to get. And just feeling good about it is the biggest return.
Yeah.
And I definitely couldn't have done that on my own. I could have done the draft.
You did the draft.
I did the draft.
You did the draft.
Seeing the changes and the huge leap in improvement,
Yeah.
Immensely worth it.
Yeah, and we're not done yet. We have at least one, if not two more reviews before we actually send it to be published.
Yes, and what I actually look forward to the edits, because it's like, well, did I nail it? Did I get it right? And I don't mind the small grammatical, like, all right, you should have used a comma here, or I love finding those, because it's like, okay, learn as I go.
Right.
So I don't stumble over any of that. What I look forward to is there value added here, or, oh, you nailed this. And I love the way that you describe this portion. Yes.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because editing isn't all you messed up or you should have done it different. A lot of editing is, way to go, this is awesome, and I'm really pleased with the way that you wrote this. So thank you for bringing that up, because I don't always mention that. So thank you.
And actually, in my second draft, what you're going to read is some of my comments back to you in certain areas where it's like, yes, nailed it, or
yes,
thank you.
Yeah, editing is a conversation between you and your editor. Like, I remember that with my editor, it was very much the same in responding to what he would bring up. So I love that. I'm looking forward to seeing the next draft.
And sometimes, and I love it, that your brain is so analytical that sometimes you take things exactly as they are. Like in a portion of my book, I talk about microdosing happiness, or microdosing exercise. And you're thinking, well, what's that got to do with taking drugs? How does that apply to that? And then further on you go, oh, yeah, never mind. Now I get it. But it took me this long. You may want to go back and add a couple extra words around this part, which I did.
Good.
So thank you for being so literal, because there are, billions of people on the planet, and everyone thinks differently depending on their upbringing, their experiences, the way that they, their perspective of the world, how they analyze things. So having somebody that's ultra analytical and sometimes literal, if you point those things out along the way, which you have, then I can smooth out those speed bumps. And again, clear sailing, which is, really adds to the flow and the ease of reading and speaking about my book.
Yeah, I love that. So let's back up a little bit before editing. You hadn't planned to write a book. You shared with me something that you wrote that spurred me to say, you should really write a book. How did that come about? What happened between you sharing a piece of my writing, me saying you should write a book, and you actually writing a book?
There were probably two things that really kick-started me in writing a book. One is I had two close friends both write and publish books within a very short amount of time window. And I saw one friend do it, and like, went to their book opening and signing and high five and like, man, I'm so proud of you. You did that. Awesome. Next friend, boom, you write a book, and got to see what that was like and some of the behind the scenes and proofreading and getting my perspective on certain things, and which totally enjoyed.
Eric was the person who read my book chapter by chapter, by the way.
So being in that, groove, being in the arena around other writers and being inspired by what they wrote about their story and what they wanted to share, made it really easy for me to go, I've had a lot of life experiences in a relatively short amount of time, which I know tons and tons of people have that as well. Everyone has a story. And I find it really surprising that everyone has so much in common, but we don't share enough. Or often, if you're a bit more of an introvert or quiet or shy, you share even less.
Right.
And historically speaking, I am I have been an introvert. I have been very shy. I'm only talkative to very close knit small groups of people. I can't be talkative to strangers. I can for short windows, but I'm much more comfortable being by myself and doing my own thing.
Right.
So, having an opportunity to share some of my stories and some of my life secrets is really a great opportunity. And I think everyone should, really take that to heart, that they have something to share that will help improve somebody else's life, make their lives easier, get them to cut to the front of the line so that they can skip all the glass on the ground and not go through that heartache. Because there are people that want to learn from you and from everybody.
Right.
There are people that want to get better at whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I think everyone has a talent that they could share some life secret that's going to help somebody else out. And that just feels good.
Absolutely. So when you're actually writing your book, what kind of things, I like to say that writing can help us heal the past. But I also know that sometimes that can be challenging to write about. Did you experience any kind of emotional challenges writing the book?
Yeah. Sometimes it's pretty rough because, I don't really talk much about my childhood, my past. A lot of people just think I'm, really just an easygoing, regular Joe Schmo guy, and probably are so clueless of the details of some of my upbringing and some of the stuff that I've gone through when I was younger. And I've touched on some of that stuff in my book. And there's other stuff that, connecting the dots made me really do a deep dive in certain areas where I'm like, well, why was that? Why do I feel about this way? And am I holding on to, some emotional baggage that I really don't need to hold on to? So it's been an experience, but it's also been an opportunity to let go of some stuff that I don't need to hold on to, and I know I don't need to hold on to it.
Right.
So it's also very freeing. And for me, writing and getting it down on paper or digital paper, it's just a way of being able to connect the dots and do some, analytical research on myself.
Yeah.
What's important to me now, who I was then, because people change over time, and where do I want to go in the future?
Yeah. What about deciding on what chapters to include in your book and what the flow of the book was going to be like?
So you and I talked about, early on, sort of a rough outline. and it's always a guide. You can
Mhm.
start here and it may change over time. And so I think in my first draft, I did something like 20 chapters, and it was
Mhm.
based off of what you and I talked about. You know, touched on this and I touched on that, and I didn't touch on this and whatever. And then it was really after I got the revisions back from you where it started to build a clearer picture where it's
Mhm.
like this portion further down in the book really should be moved up. And maybe this part right here, we don't need that. Or maybe this, you can tie these three together because they fit so well.
Yeah.
And so I do, I don't necessarily follow fully chronologically in my book.
Mhm.
Um, but it makes it more exciting for me to do like a flashback, like Pulp Fiction-esque, it's like, oh, we're talking the story. You know what that reminds me of? The flashback to this, and then
Yeah.
it makes more sense and it makes for a cool story.
Mhm. Very good. So speaking of a cool story, tell everyone what your book is about and what they can look forward to when it's ready.
So my book is about well,
What's the
obviously
title
about
first?
it's no bad tides. It's surfing and life strategies, and it really has to do with 30 years of knowledge that I've gained, not only in surfing, but also outside of the world of surfing and water sports, where I've been able to connect the dots to those things that have made learning easier, that have made cutting to the front of the line in a smooth way where it doesn't look like you're cutting in front of the line, you're just sort of magically there. And they're
Nice.
like, well, he was there the whole time, wasn't he? So, and it's really my way of giving back to, not only the surf community, but people that want to know more about surfing
Yeah.
and people that want, an advantage to self-improvement. Because I give secrets of how you can become a better surfer, but those same secrets can be applied to anything.
Yeah.
How can
And
I
I can
be?
say, as someone who doesn't know or understand surfing, with the exception of the jargon we're correcting through editing, it's definitely a book that's valuable whether you're a surfer or not. Like there are some really good life strategies in there, even just for people who want to travel and people who have a bit of wanderlust to just have that cultural experience that the surfing community has that we may not be a part of.
Awesome. Yes, totally agree.
Good, good. Well, I'm super excited. I know Eric's going to be sharing his cover designs as they come, and I'll be sure and share the book when it's published. I'm really, really excited. This is the first one that I have worked with the author from the very beginning. So I helped Eric to establish his chapters, and then we've been through the first edit. We're going to have at least one or two more. We've done the cover design, and we're going to do the publishing and promotion too. So this is a full service, very beginning to very end, and I couldn't ask for a better author to collaborate with because it's been just a really fun experience. So I'm looking forward to what's to come, and I'm excited about it.
Yes, I'm also very, very excited. And I just have to say that one, I'm very grateful and thankful for your support, but also I am just, ecstatic about how far I've come as a writer and that I actually did it. I put things
Yeah,
down
that's the
on
best. Yeah.
paper and, I wrote 20 chapters,
Yeah,
and I'm sharing knowledge in my story. And I feel like, man, if I can do it, anybody can do it. Anybody can do it.
totally.
With a little support, with some coaching, with a little guidance, some help, it's doable. And that just makes it easier to take things to the next level. I'm excited about this book. I'm excited about writing other books.
I love that you're talking about writing more books.
Yeah, I mean, I've had so much life experience. I mean, I can't count how many times I've almost died in my lifetime, you know, so ups and downs, just amazing places that I've traveled to that were unexpected journeys that I didn't think I was going to end up there, you know.
And a book is such a beautiful legacy. Like it's such a gift for your readers and your family and your friends. And that's a great way to culminate and put them all together.
Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. We're closing up for now, but thank you very much. I appreciate you.